Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Living Beyond Limits. I'm Reverend Jennifer Spear, and we are a part of Centers for Spiritual Living. And I'm so glad that you joined us this morning for this service. Let's begin the service by reading our mission statement that's on the front of your bulletin. We are a sanctuary where people can discover and reveal the presence of God within their own being and experience their oneness with all life. Through the realization of this inner presence of love and peace, we give way to the evolutionary impulse of the divine and become a beneficial presence in the world. That's what we're doing here at Living Beyond Limits, is we are giving ourselves the opportunity to remember and feel that, yes, indeed, that infinite presence lives within us. That one presence, that one power, that one life, that one creative intelligence that permeates and expresses itself in and through everything is the very essence of our own spirit, of our own divine nature, of that which we have come from, and it is that which we come to this world as. And so what happens is, as we recognize that that presence is innate to our own beingness, then when we are out in the world and the world is not reflecting back to us, say, peace or kindness or love, we aren't as reliant on receiving that from the world because we know that we have it in here. So what happens is we can tap into that and bring forward peace or love or kindness or generosity or whatever it is, because that's innate to our beingness. And as we do that, we act as a healing presence in our own lives, and we act as a healing presence in whatever that situation or circumstance is, because we come to the world differently. We come more grounded, we come more loving, we come to the world as a spiritual being. And so I thank every single one of you for answering the call of your own spirit to be walking this path, to be bringing your spirit and the divine spirit into this world in a way that only you uniquely can do. So thank you for that. So do you have anything that's going on in your world or in your life that feels unsure? Are there any aspects of your life maybe that feel like right now they are unsettled or uncertain? Is there anything in your life right now that kind of feels like it's in limbo? Maybe you have a relationship that feels kind of unsettled right now. Or maybe you are going through some sort of a transition in your life where you're transitioning from one phase of your life to another right now. Or maybe things just kind of feel unsettled because of this pandemic we've been in, and your life hasn't gotten back to where it feels settled yet, or things in your life haven't gotten back to where they feel really settled yet. Or maybe the thing that gets you a little bit off kilter that feels unsure has to do with the economy or with the stock market and its craziness. Whatever it is right now, bring that to mind, whatever thing in your life kind of feels unsettled right now. And as I talk today, just kind of hold that in the back of your mind while I'm talking. And so I don't know about you, but uncertainty is not really my favorite place to live. You know, we as human beings like to feel like things are under control, and we like to feel like we have at least some control over what's going on in our lives. But you know what? The truth is, we don't really have control over what's going on out there. We have a little control over what's going on out there. The only thing we really have control over is what goes on in here. The only thing we have control over is the thoughts that we have and the stories that we tell ourselves about what's happening out there. We have control over what we do with what's happening in the world and what we think about what's happening in the world. But oftentimes what happens when something in our life feels like it's in limbo, or something in our world feels like it's in limbo, is we start worrying. And we worry that things aren't going to work out, or we worry that they're not going to work out the way that we want them to work out. And then, out of that fear of the unknown, what happens is we make up stories in our head about what's going to happen. And oftentimes, have you noticed those stories that you make up are the worst case scenarios? They're not the best case scenarios. We make up the stories about the worst case scenarios, and the fascinating thing is the reason we do that is so we feel like we have some control. Isn't that crazy? Just so we can feel like we have control over what's happening, we'll make up the worst possible story we can think of. That's craziness. We get into, when things are in limbo, we start doubting that our good is assured. And perhaps even we sometimes start thinking that maybe God is going to drop us in regards to this particular situation, that we're going to somehow be dropped by God. As if we could be dropped by life. As if we could be dropped by that absolute intelligence that permeates all things. That absolute intelligence that fills everything, that is the very essence of who we are, and that intelligence that is the very essence of life, and therefore the life that we're living. Like we could be dropped from that. It's impossible. But what happens in our fear and in our worry and in our catastrophizing, we start feeling anxious, or maybe you feel depressed, or maybe you start feeling a little bit hopeless about that situation in your life. But what we really want during those times of uncertainty is we want a sense of assurance. We want to rest in that assurance that our good is assured. Especially when we can't yet see how it's going to unfold. We want to trust and have faith that we are being led and guided into whatever the good is that's going to come about as a result of this. We want to know that we're being led and guided into our best life. We want to know that regardless of how this thing that feels unsettled is resolved, we want to know that our life will feel satisfying and that we will feel fulfilled. We want to trust truly that all is well and that our good is at hand. So the title of my talk today is Good for You, because good is for you. And I'm talking about that when things in our lives are in flux, when things feel unsettled, or when things feel unsure, we can rest in that knowing that life is for us. We can rest in that knowing that everything is working for good. And so I'm really going to be talking today about 3 different tools that we can use when we are in those times of being unsettled. And the first one is mindfulness. And the second one is activating your faith. And the third one is acting against your self-defeating thoughts. And so that first one, mindfulness. When you find yourself worrying, or when you find yourself feeling hopeless about some situation, you can always know that you are always in the future. You're never in the present moment when you're worrying or if you're feeling hopeless. And so what you can do through the practice of mindfulness is to know that you're in the future and to actually bring yourself back into the present moment. And you do that by telling yourself, be here now. You do that by breathing and then focusing on your breath as it goes in and out. And you also, through the practice of mindfulness, can tell yourself, all is well here in this moment. And so let's do that. Bring to mind that thing that you feel unsettled about, that thing that you're worrying about. Just kind of let it be there in your mind. And now tell yourself, be here now. And breathe. And focus on your breath. and tell yourself all is well here. Do you notice in that there is no anxiety? Do you notice in that there is no fear? There's no worry. Instead, there's kind of a sense of relaxing. And so you can open your eyes. And so the second tool that we can use is actually to activate our faith when things feel unsure and feel unsettled. In Living the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes said, "The quickest and most effective method to get rid of fear is to get quiet and lift up your whole thought in confidence and faith to capital S something bigger than you are." Putting your attention, lifting your faith to something that is bigger than you are. And so concretely, what is that something that you can rely on? What is that something that you can put your faith and your trust in? Something specific, something concrete. Perhaps would it be that there is an intelligence that is far greater than your current thinking? An intelligence that actually knows what it's doing? An intelligence that this cosmos has been created out of that intelligence? Could it be that that something greater is an intelligence that permeates all things, that animates all things, that animates your very life? Could you put your faith and trust in that? Or maybe could you put your faith and trust knowing that there is a law of growth, and that law of growth is the very nature of life? That law of growth is always about expansion. It is always about a greater unfoldment. It is always about unfolding potentiality. For instance, the beauty and the magnificence of an oak tree is contained within that acorn. The beauty and the magnificence of a rose is contained within that tight green bud. The intelligence, the beauty, the law of growth is already contained within that, and it's always seeking to come forward. Could you lean into that when you're concerned about how something's going to unfold in your life? Your life is that life in the acorn, in the rosebud, that life unfolding itself. And that potentiality, that magnificence unfolds itself through the changes in your life. It can't unfold something new when things are static, but it's when things are changing and shifting and moving. That's when that potentiality can come forward and express as your life. Can you lean into that and trust that when things seem scary because you don't know how it's going to turn out? Dennis Merritt Jones, in his book, The Art of Uncertainty, says, life, the metaphor of a river, means wading in and trusting that the infinite flow of life knows better than you do where it is going. Yours is to surrender to the flow and trust the process. And so if you were to step into a real river, would you think that you knew better where that river is going than the river knows? Of course not. The river is bigger than you are. This life of God that you are living is bigger than your mind will tell you. It's bigger than your fear, than your anxiety, than your worry, than your doubt. Ernest Holmes said, "In seeking answers to our problems and questions, we need to realize and know there is an intelligence in me which knows the answer to every question. There is nothing unknown in this mind. It has the solution to every problem. This mind is my mind. It is working in me and through me. It is acquainting my intellect, my conscious mind, with the desired information." And so I'm going to ask you to repeat that after me. There is an intelligence in me which knows the answer to every question. There is an intelligence in me which knows the answer to every question. There is nothing unknown to this mind. There's nothing unknown to this mind. It has the solution to every problem. This mind is my mind. It is now working in me, through me. It is acquainting my intellect, my conscious mind, with the desired information. And we can rest there. You remind yourself of the truth. And so the last one of those three tools is to act as if you believe the opposite of the story you're telling yourself. Act as if you feel the feelings of the opposite of the story that you're telling yourself. And so I'm going to share a story with you. It says there is a story in the Veda of a prince out hunting in the woods. He spots a beautiful stag and follows him deeper and deeper into the ancient forest. So intent is he upon the hunt that he loses track of time, and when he finally realizes the day is ending, he is lost. So far from the familiar, even if he had time to return to his horse before dark, he had no sense of direction of which way to go. And as night falls, he stops in his tracks, frightened of this dark, so deep that he is unable to discern even faintly a track to follow. The prince stands there, torn between his fear and his need. So many people back in his kingdom who depend upon him, who need his leadership. So much that his father has asked him that is still to be done. But he finds he cannot move, and he remains there, petrified in the dark, for an hour, then 2, the sounds of the forest growing louder around him, the animals getting closer, becoming more and more bold as the dark of the night thickens. Finally, he moves because he absolutely must. And as soon as he raises his foot and sets it forward, a path appears before him, shining as if by the brightest moonlight. So shocked is the prince that he stops again. And when he stops, the path disappears. And in the sudden ringing darkness, once again, the predators begin to move in toward him. And driven by fear and responsibility, he takes another step. And the path once again shines forth in the forest. He takes another step and another. Each time he falters, unsure of where the next step of the path may take him, the path begins to fade away, and he forces himself to take the next step into the unknown, beyond the curve, and in this way, of course, he is led out of the forest, out of the darkness, back to his horse, and from there, now free of the oppression of the woods, back to his castle and his kingdom, and the love of his people, and the meaningful life awaiting him there. The thing is, it's only when we take a step forward, It's only when we move forward, it's only when we do something that we actually get excited, that we feel motivated, that we feel enthusiastic. It's only then that we stir up that energy that moves us forward. Making the move or taking the step creates the motivation to continue to move and the enthusiasm to continue to move forward, so that we can then end up at the satisfaction of the end of the story that is good, so that we can end up fulfilling the end of the story. And so that means then, if you're acting against the story that you're telling yourself, if you're acting against the fear or the doubt that you're feeling, that means if you're doubtful, you pretend that you're assured. And you create that feeling inside of you, and then you ask yourself, from here, now that I feel assured, what do I want to do? What can I do? How do I want to move? And then you take a step forward in that new feeling that is opposite of what you've been creating inside of yourself. Or if you're anxious, you pretend that you feel calm and that you feel clear. And then you ask, what do I do from here? How do I move forward from here? What am I motivated to do? And you take a step in that new feeling. If you're worried that something isn't going to end well, you pretend that you know that it's all going to work out in the end and be good. And then you make choices from there. And then you ask yourself, what do I do from this place now that I feel this way? What step do I take now that I'm assured that it's all going to work out in the end? You move toward what you want that way. And you probably, in order to come up with those answers, are going to need to sit down and write about it. How am I feeling? What's the opposite of that? And write it down. And tell yourself that story. This is really how it's going to end. And then write about, what do I want to do from here to move me forward? And so my invitation to you this week is, when you are caught up in your doubts, in your fears, in your concerns, or if you're feeling helpless because things are unsettled in your life and you don't yet know how to resolve them, to one, practice mindfulness. To tell yourself, be here now. Here is the only moment there is. Here is the moment where there's power. Here is the moment where there's choice. Be here now. And breathe and focus on your breath, and to tell yourself all is well here, and to let yourself rest in that. To fan the flames of your faith. Remember to ask yourself, what is the something bigger that I can trust in? What is the something bigger that I can put my faith in, that I can lean into in this moment where things are yet to be resolved? What can I have confidence in? And answer that question for yourself and lean into that. Trust in that. And the third, act against the feelings that you've created out of that story that you've made up. Act as if you already know that it's going to work out for good. That it's already going to work out in a way that leaves you feeling satisfied and fulfilled and living a good life. Act as if you feel the opposite of that thing you're worrying about. And step forward from there. Make a choice from there to do something. Lead with that consciousness, and guess what? The path will appear before you. And it will be a path that is satisfying and deeply fulfilling to your soul. For your good is assured. And so blessings to every single one of you on this path of remembering who you are, this path of living a life that is filled with good, and living a life that is in recognition of that infinite one that is always right where you are. Blessings to all of you. And so I invite you to join me in an affirmative prayer. And so how good it is just to be in recognition of that infinite one that is the creative intelligence of the cosmos, that one that orchestrates and holds the planets in their orbits, the one that acts as migratory impulses in animals, the one that grows the acorn into an oak tree. That infinite creative potential is everywhere present, and it is the very nature of my life. It is the nature of your life. It is the nature of life itself. And so how good it is also to be recognizing that we are each living this life of the divine, this life that is filled to overflowing with good, that is filled with creativity, and inspiration, and connection, and oneness, and joy, and goodness. How good it is to know that we are each incarnations of this life, and that we can never be separate or apart from it, for it is the very essence of our spirit. It is the essence of our soul. It is the life that we are living. It is truly all that there is. And so right now, we each and every one of us just lay down our burden. We lay down whatever has been concerning us, whatever has been creating doubt or worry or concern within us. We lay that down at the altar of good, recognizing that good is seeking to happen, and that good is greater than any doubt or fear that we could have. We just step into that, recognizing and knowing that the kingdom has already been made, and it is here, that we are living in this kingdom of the living spirit, where all potential exists, and where good is the very law and the fabric of it all. And so I speak this word not just about us in this room, but I speak this word right now for every politician and every decision maker, every person who is in a place of power, recognizing that that same spirit is right where they are, that it is the very essence of who and what they are also, and that it is infinite intelligence. That presence right now is revealing itself within their minds and hearts and through their hands as perfect decisions. As decisions that are life-giving, decisions that enable humanity to thrive and flourish, decisions that are of the good. And so I release this prayer into the creative law of the universe, knowing that it is unfolding itself right now. For we, in our saying yes, have created an opening for that to come into fruition. And so in our yes, I invite you to join me in saying, and so it is. So it is. And so I invite you to repeat after me, good fills my life now. Good fills my life now. I step into it. I own it. I celebrate it. And so it is.